easier. Let's knock that down just a bit more. Maybe that will fix it. Oh, is the stream broken now? Or the chat broken now? Great. My favorite. I love when the chat's broken. There we go. The chat is no longer broken. I have solved it. I have fixed it. Why is this? Oh, God. I set everything up yesterday differently for the stream, and now everything is breaking. Everything is on fire. And I really don't want my stream to turn into America. But I think that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So, speaking of things that are not American, which my stream is slowly turning into just a giant clusterfuck, I have a friend online. I was going to say a guest, but I mean that's not really the proper term at this point. So, give me an H in the chat if you guys know Channel Pup. And if you don't, then I'm going to go ahead and send a ballistic missile over to you. No, I'm not going to do that. That would be a threat. So, Channel Pup is going to be joining me today because on yesterday's stream, there was some conversation about the Tories and how that's gone on in UK, how they've been going in UK politics. And I do not live there, so I do not have as much of a perspective outside of, like, the odd story I get on the internet. So I figured I'd go ahead and grab somebody who actually does live there and can give some perspective there. So now that I'm done being awkward, and I've got a phone call for some reason, go away. Why is it right when I begin streaming, somebody decides to call me? What an asshole. Channel Pup, would you like to introduce yourself? And if not, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think I'll refrain, thank you. No.
Okay, fair enough.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Channel Pup. I run a YouTube channel devoted to comic book entertainment, comic book movies, just geeky stuff, really. And it's not very often that I get political, so this is going to be quite an interesting evening to see if I can really articulate on this kind of subject. But I am here to answer basically your questions and Suris' questions on the UK's government, for lack of a more appropriate term for them. So that's what I'm here for, and that's my introduction. A little sloppy, but there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Keelan in the chat mentions that the voice sounds familiar. Well, yes, Channel Pup's been on the channel before. He was actually in one of our Among Us streams that we did a few weeks ago.
I was.
Channel Pup has been here for that, and I've been on Channel Pup's channel talking about something I don't normally talk about as well, and that was about YouTube security and the different ways in which your channel can get taken away from you, because the thing that actually caused me and Channel Pup to meet each other was our mutual friend Nick, game apologist, basically throwing Channel Pup at me and going, hey, so my friend just got his channel hacked and you went through all this shit, so maybe you can help.
He was just like, "Can you look after my kid for a while?"
Basically, that's essentially what it is. It's just like, hey, I don't know how to handle. He's barfing everywhere. I've changed the diaper 3 times. I don't. And little did I know, it's because somebody swapped the kids out and put like a cryptocurrency kid in there, and that's why it was shitting the bed everywhere.
Yeah.
I believe Channel Pup, the actual Channel Pup, is potty trained.
Yeah, I keep it to your front yard, yeah.
Well, there's certainly a lot of front yard there. I live in the woods, so you've probably hid it behind at least 3 trees at this point.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah, I'm going to travel out to whatever state you're in just to poop in your front yard and leave.
That's like the ultimate power move. The only thing you could do to create a stronger rift in power dynamic is to end by T-posing.
Definitely.
Shit while T-posing in an American's yard, and then fly back to your. Not only are you flaunting the fact that you were able to fly between here and a country that I'd rather be in, but you've also flaunted the fact that now I've got to figure out. Did you just magically turn some of my soil from that magical American soil now that there's British fertilizer in it?
Sounds like a hell of a Kickstarter pitch.
Jesus. Just, okay, guys, we need like $10,000, and the goal we're trying to reach is so that a friend can come shit in my yard.
While T-posing.
While T-posing specifically. I think that it's a good cause, and if you haven't had a chance to donate to it yet, you should relish the opportunity that I have now granted you and given to your front doorstep. Like the shit that I'll find at my front doorstep.
Speaking of shit,
Tories.
we got to talk about the Tories.
True. So I do want to preface this that Channel Pop doesn't normally do political stuff. The most generally is like the odd video about like what happened with George Floyd on his channel, and then also the odd thing on Twitter. But it is because of the odd thing on Twitter that I was like, well, you complain about this stuff enough. Might as well go ahead and try. So for those who don't know, the Tories, consider them as close to an equivalent to the United States Republican Party as possible, at least that I can think of. But you might be able to contextualize that a little more for me.
Sure. For sure, they are the equivalent to the Republican Party, and the closest thing we have to the Democrats would be the Labour Party. And where this gets confusing is the colours as well. The Labour Party is the red one, and the Conservative Party is the blue one. So it's kind of the flip side from what you guys have.
Yeah, and the whole reason that ours are set up the way that they are in the first place is because of TV channels. Like, the idea that there were colors assigned to the individual parties is kind of a recent phenomenon within the last, like, 25, 30 years. Every TV station, for the most part, had their own colors they assigned to the parties. Like, sometimes it was, like, green and yellow. So it's basically arbitrary that we have them set as red and blue. And I think it's sad that they are set the way they are, because you've got the Republicans who are red, and then they're also, like, virulently anti-communist. And I'm like, dude, do you guys know what the color of communism is?
It's just confusing, isn't it?
Yeah. Hercule says in the chat, wouldn't the Democrats be closer to the liberal Democrats than Labor? That actually...
that's an interesting point. Sorry, you go first, though, Suris. Sorry for interrupting.
So I would say that from what I am to understand, where the United States is compared to most global scales, our Democrats are not really left. They are socially left-leaning insofar as you could consider that the political compass axis to have a social left. But economically speaking, they are generally center-right. Generally very pro-capitalism, very pro... It's hard to even get things like pro-union stuff out of the Democrats. So the fact that the party is even called Labor at all means that it might be a better representation of the workers than the Democrats.
In many ways, yes. Some from column A, some from column B. In terms of the Liberal Democrat Party, though, it's been quite an interesting turn of events over like the course of my lifetime. Anyway, is that the Liberal Democrats did used to be the #1 opposing force against the Tories, but they faded into obscurity as I think it was in 2010. I think there was the coalition government where basically the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives were too close for the votes, basically. And so a coalition was formed as the then Conservative leader David Cameron would be the Prime Minister alongside Nick Clegg, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. So you had a bit of both. The thing is, David Cameron got the final say. He got the most power. And what happened was Nick Clegg basically did not represent the Liberal Democrats while he was in power. He basically worked as a lackey for David Cameron, losing the faith of the British public in the Liberal Democrat Party. And that's how they kind of faded into obscurity, while there were people like Ed Miliband representing Labour on the rise, and they were actually putting up a fight against the Conservatives. So that's kind of how Labour kind of got a bit more relevant after that than the Liberal Democrat, basically.
So kind of like how Sargon managed to just tank the UKIP party completely.
Effectively, yeah. I mean, I don't know as much about UKIP, to be honest, because it's kind of assumed that they're never going to win, you know? But they factor in very interestingly with Brexit, basically. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot of ground that you can cover here. But I guess I can segue a bit onto kind of the origins of Brexit and how the Conservative Party kind of acted quite irresponsibly with it. Was basically they became a little bit scared of the UKIP party because they were rallying up interest for a possible leaving of the European Union. And the Conservative Party were kind of split on this, but David Cameron, the then Prime Minister, was against the idea. But he did call a referendum for there to be a Brexit so that the Conservatives could come out on top of UKIP, basically. It was a strategic move to kind of keep UKIP kind of obscured, kind of more of a team up than it was a straight up, leave in the dust kind of thing. But basically, then David Cameron kind of went on to kind of blackmail the UK quite a bit, saying, like if the vote outcome ends up in Brexit's favour, it's going to be bad news and stuff. And a lot of people had kind of a very rebellious attitude towards this. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, who was the then UKIP leader, were kind of saying, yeah, but if you vote Brexit, everyone gets a free puppy, basically. And people believed it. People believed that, and it's an interesting kind of outcome, because basically all the information that was really there was we had our Prime Minister saying, if you vote for Brexit, I'll deal you a shit hand. And then we had the Brexit people saying, if you vote for Brexit, it's gonna be great. Basically, like, what is the Brexit policy? It's gonna be great. And it's,
which is as vapid as our "Make America Great Again" spiel at the end of the day.
I mean, there were these adverts going around, and it was like, this is us in the European Union. And it showed these packed waiting rooms at the hospitals. Everyone looks all sad and stuff. It's like, this is us when we leave the EU. And there was like an almost empty waiting room, and the people in the waiting room were all happy and smiles. There were children playing with toys and books and stuff in the waiting rooms.
But then what they don't tell you is that the reason for that ultimately is because haven't they wanted to just like strip the NHS down? Which would naturally lead to fewer people being like. That means that they're not showing you the people dying in their homes.
Well, that's the other thing, is like, basically Boris Johnson was leading the charge for Brexit, saying we can save 350 million per year and put it into the NHS. I think it's per month even. Again, I'm not well versed with the number crunching or the facts. I'm offering a perspective, but it was like, basically we're going to put a fuck ton of money into the NHS. And I was like, is that so? But you are a Conservative. Your only interest has been on rinsing this thing, so why the sudden change of heart? And I was like, it does seem uncharacteristic that an idea led by a faction of the Conservatives alongside the UKIP party would have the NHS in its best interests. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And as well as that, Boris Johnson, even then, was famous for lying. So it was just kind of like, everything added up for me. I was like, that's not gonna happen. I mean, if you want my 2 cents, I voted Remain, because I was like, it's either do things as it is now, or look into the mystery box. And as well as that, like, my sister lives in France, and I was like, well, surely leaving the EU is going to put her at a disadvantage, so I'm not going to vote. But
wouldn't that necessarily create travel restrictions for you guys?
Well, it has. There's quite a bit to get into as well in regard to Brexit's immigration and travel policies. But I was like, yeah, like, leaving the EU cannot mean good news for my sister who's living in France. So I'm not going to vote for it. I'm going to vote against it. And as well as that, like, things are pretty good right now. I was aware that there is trade going on between the EU and stuff. So it's like, it made only sense for us to stick around. And it's like, I didn't know as much back then as I do now about it, because nobody did. There was a drought of information regarding this thing. You could get yourself a pamphlet saying Brexit good or a pamphlet saying Brexit bad, and that was all there was in terms of details. But then there's also, like, with it, there's the broken promises. At the time, Boris Johnson was saying, maintaining our freedom of movement is important to Brexit. Like, at the end of the day, we want to maintain a good relationship with the EU, and we want to maintain our freedom of movement. And it's true, there's no necessary reason as to why the end of the EU and the UK being in the same thing should necessarily mean an end to free movement. And it's like Boris was saying, yeah, there'll definitely be a deal, there's no chance of a no deal, and we're going to keep free movement. And literally, just like a few months ago, Priti Patel, someone who's in the Tories, an MP for, I think, Whittam or something, announces the end to free movement. And it's like, there we fucking go, you know? Like, we're doing this. And I was kind of incensed by this because my girlfriend lives in Germany. So if we want to live together, we're going to have to get something figured out with visas and stuff. Whereas previously, I could just go over there and live there. I could just set up camp there. So I was upset about that. I've got a lot of people that I know that are expats that are unhappy about this. My sister now has to get citizenship to stay in France. And it's all going to cost everybody a lot of money. It is possible, but it's a lot more difficult than it was before. And of course, you have to get it approved and everything. And it's just so bizarre, and this Priti Patel woman's a nasty bit of work as well. She's been like having accusations of bullying. There's talks of her trying to introduce the death penalty after leaving the EU again. She wants to kind of make it so that people can't protest either. She wants to reduce our rights to protest. But it's like also just the end of the freedom of movement thing is like now if we want immigrants to come in, they have to come in on like a points-based system so that the UK can get only the most prestigious and intelligent, the best and brightest from around the world. And I'm just saying, like, Priti Patel, the best and brightest, if they want to go anywhere, they ain't gonna fucking come here in the state that we're in. Jesus Christ, I wouldn't choose this place.
So I also was just sent a picture of Boris Johnson's battle bus that is now being showed on screen.
The thing I also just find nuts is that Priti Patel is the daughter of immigrants. She's the daughter of immigrants that came over here.
Well, that's how it ends up being a lot of the time, though, where you've got you have people who go, well, I did this on my own, or I'm my own person, and then you go, but your policies would necessarily extend to hurting the people around you. Like when you have Donald Trump in the United States, who's argued, you know, anti-immigration essentially. If you're for anybody who's Mexican or Muslim, which basically translates to, hey, if you're brown and we think you might bomb something, just based on that fact, we'd rather not have you here. When you look at policies like that and you go, but wait, hold on, Trump, isn't your wife an immigrant? Like, what is, like, is it that there's just like certain people you don't want immigrating, and if that's the case, then what is your actual argument for those individual people? What is the unifying factor that means you don't want them there?
Yeah. That's the thing, though, is some people have no respect for the people closest to them, and some people have no respect for themselves, and I think Priti Patel falls into both of those categories. But, like, another thing I just thought of is, yeah, at the time Brexit was first starting, one of the things that Boris Johnson told the general public as a reason to leave the EU was that Turkey was going to be joining the EU. And it didn't happen. It never happened. It was never on the cards. It was a straight-up lie. So, again, more lying from our government and such. And, yeah, it's put us in this whole mess because basically the people... The reality of it is everything that was promised with Brexit did not come to pass. None of it happened. Every promise was broken. Everything turned out to be a lie about it. But the government kind of acts like, well, you made your bed, you voted for it. Where a lot of people were saying,
but we voted on the like predication of a lie.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of vehement Brexit supporters that will say, oh yeah, no, keep complaining, Ramonas and stuff. But it's like, can you honestly look me in the eye and say, this is what you voted for. This has gone to plan. This is what you expected. Now, we are at least on the other end of it now. We are out of the EU now. We did get a trade deal. It's not a great one, but we got one in the end. So... fair game. But when it was like middle of 2019 and everyone was like, oh, this is going exactly to plan, while Boris Johnson was just Naruto running throughout the fucking EU and the UK to get himself a deal. Like, I don't get it. I just think Brexit in its own way is like a little cult. But hey, here we are now on the other side of it. We're now at something of a disadvantage. We're going to have to pay much more customs tariffs as a country, and there's going to be a very sensitive and rough transition period ahead, and I do not trust this government with even a pinch of it. And then there's
that. I wouldn't either, given the way that things have been shown to operate. Like, if you've told your citizenship to vote based entirely on a group of lies, how are you supposed to maintain a level of trust and respect after that fact when you ask your citizenship to do anything again?
Exactly. I mean, basically, Boris Johnson has total contempt for that, and it shows. Like, he's happy to lie to people, and like he did when he said, "Oh yeah, we've got an oven-ready deal." At the end of 2019, when the election was coming up, he was like, "Yeah, we've got an oven-ready Brexit deal. It's all ready to go." And then when he got elected, all through 2020, he was just scrambling to get this deal together and just get whatever he could. So it took ages. It took ages, but like it was a lie. It goes to show he never had any plans of that. But the Conservatives will lie. They are a very callous people with a great deal of contempt for the UK public. I mean, where do I even begin with that? To be honest, the initial coronavirus strategy that they had in mind, the austerity measures of 2010. And austerity is kind of the main be-all and end-all for me. Like, it's the worst thing. Worse than Brexit is the austerity measures that were put in place in 2010.
Could you maybe explain what those are for people?
Okay, so basically, the austerity measures were a colossal cut to the funding of public services, including the NHS, police, fire department, and stuff like that, all to reduce the national debt. Now, an austerity measure... I'm going to do this in kind of a metaphor. It's the equivalent of saying, say you run a bakery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to kind of stop the expenses. You don't order any bread ingredients in, but yet you keep the lights on and keep the doors open. It's just no one can buy anything.
Yeah, see, at that point, you've cut off your legs. Because, you've got your... So, like, when you want to improve your country... I'm moving out of the analogy and just back into the actual like happenstance. You want to improve your country, but you want to slash your debt. Okay, cool. So you go ahead and get rid of all your programs that are helping improve the populace of your country, and then you wonder, wait, why is everybody poor now? Why can't people get jobs? Why can't people sustain themselves? I slashed the debt.
Like, there's what is the figures actually? It's reported there have been 130,000 otherwise preventable deaths under the Conservative austerity measures. So that's 130,000 people dead because they couldn't get access to things like healthcare soon enough, or they were killed in a lack of police and stuff like that.
So I do have
access.
I do have a question on that, because there's a thing that our government does. And it's a feedback loop, and I want to know if the same kind of thing happens over there.
Sure.
So what happens with us is that we have one aside from like Medicare and Medicaid, we have one ready go-to argument that conservatives use all the time against public health care, and it's the VA, the Veterans Assistance Program, which is notoriously slow because they're having to handle everything from health care to housing to just a myriad of benefits you're supposed to get whenever you leave the military and you're done serving the country. People like Mark Levin here have argued constantly against the efficacy of universal health care because of the failures of the VA, which generally end up culminating in it's really fucking slow. It doesn't get people their help on time. But then they align themselves with the party that typically cuts the funding to the VA. And this is, a little tinfoil hatty, but it seems to me like the strategy at that point becomes, if we cut the funding to the VA, it will operate less with less efficacy. If the VA loses efficacy, then we can then say, hey, you don't want your healthcare to operate like the VA, do you? And then people lose their trust in the ability for the government to provide for its people. And then they just don't want the government to provide for its people, and then they can go, okay, as long as we keep on slashing, like if we keep on slashing these benefits, we can then argue that these benefits are not getting to the people they need to, and so that people should have to be on their own. But at that point, it's a goalpost shift. It's not the VA that is the problem, it's them defunding the VA that's the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like what we've got with the NHS over here. Like, if you ever need to go to the doctor or something, you'll notice there's not enough doctors there or nurses. They're all rushing around and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's so few of them. There is a huge doctor and nurse shortage in the UK. And to be honest, you wouldn't want to become a doctor or a nurse. You wouldn't want to work in medical unless out of pure benevolent passion for helping people, because they barely make a minimum wage there, and when they do, they have to pay for parking. They have to pay ridiculous amounts for parking, and it's that like they have to effectively pay to go to work, and it's extortionate. And the Conservatives have had every opportunity to change that. They've had every opportunity to
like they could improve the well-being of the people who are working in the medical field.
Absolutely, but they don't. They don't support them and stuff like that. And there was a possible thing on the cards earlier last year where it was like, okay, shall we up the NHS's pay? They didn't. They didn't up it one iota. But conveniently, all of the MPs got a pay rise by I think it was by like 20,000 or something.
So it's the exact same strategy. You go instead of going, hey, the NHS isn't working up to par, let's fix the NHS. They go, the NHS isn't working up to par, let's nix the NHS. Seems to be the strategy there.
Well, there is a blanket over that. Basically, Boris Johnson's whole thing. Well, Boris Johnson is kind of fronting this, but there's Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock, the health secretary. Their whole thing is banging on about the NHS non-stop. They're basically just saying, wash your hands, protect the NHS and stuff like that. That's like their number one thing is like, oh yeah, you wouldn't want to get COVID, protect the NHS and all that. And I just remember near the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was organized the mass clapping for the NHS.
But that does nothing.
It does nothing. Like at first, the first time I saw this happen, I thought that's a nice little moment in this thing. But as it went on, it became like a weekly thing, and the Conservatives were now paying copious amounts of money to spray mailboxes blue, make a bus with a rainbow on it that says NHS and stuff like that. But it's like literally anything but a pay rise to help their quality of life. It's a thankless job, it seems to be. And the thing is, this also links a little bit to Black Lives Matter. There's a little bit of crossover here in that basically there was organized a Take the Knee Day in the UK to show solidarity with the United States during the Black Lives Matter movement. And Boris Johnson was asked, will you take the knee? And he said, no, I don't believe in gestures. Gestures do nothing.
But
and
that's...
it's like, okay,
but that's...
tell that to the fucking NHS in that case, you know?
And so it seems to be the same type of... So the same strategy that I laid out before, that is the one where you go, hey, this thing isn't working, you don't want this thing, and then they argue to nix this thing. I've seen that the UK gets used as an argument about, you know, do you want your doctors paid as little as they are paid over there? No, you don't. You want them paid as best as they can, because doctors, depending on where you are in the medical field here, it pays very well. But at the end of the day, if you look at the political alignments of the people who are arguing for these things, it seems to be a self-fulfilling prophecy of, you don't want to be paid as bad as those doctors over there. Well, hold on, if your party was in charge over there, would you try to get those doctors better pay? Well, no, we wouldn't do that. Okay, then you're just part of the problem. The problem isn't that system. The problem is you humping on that system and destroying it from the inside. That's not... You can't say universal healthcare bad while you're sitting there just... If universal healthcare were a potato, you're sitting there, you stopped peeling it, and now you're just shaving into it and going, look at how much potato you're losing. But they're the ones peeling it away. Exactly.
Like, it also just links also to that mentality as well. Like, basically another thing the Conservatives were making an imperative was, do not close the schools. For any reason. Education is the number one most important thing in the world.
But then they fucking defunded their school lunches.
Well, there's a lot to go into there. Yeah, there was the school lunch thing where there was a footballer, I can't remember what his name was, but he set up a fund and an initiative to get free school meals sorted out for the kids. So the money was there, the support was there. But when they took it to the MPs basically overwhelmingly said, nah, we're not going to do that. Why? I don't know. No one has any clue as to why they voted against it, other than just pure contempt for the general public and the children. And some of the excuses I've seen from conservative people have been absurd. When people say parents are responsible for their own children, if they can't feed their kids, maybe they shouldn't have them. It's like, how is that the child's fault, even if that is the case? Like, for one thing, not everyone can necessarily work. Not everyone can necessarily make ends meet, especially in a time where people are losing their jobs left, right, and center because of the pandemic going on at the moment. But also, just how is it the kid's fault? Why should the kid have to suffer? And how the fuck do these people's minds not come up with this immediately without me having to explain it to them? How do I have to explain this to people? It's absurd.
Moreover, when you're... it's another type of feedback loop, where you basically force parents in a position where they have to homeschool because it starts to not be cost effective for them to take children to public school. They might not be able to afford the gas, and the cost offset that might have been there because they're going to get fed there, and the one parent can now go to work during the time that they're there. You then start cutting all that out and just go, yeah, no, you're on your own. If you create this world where everybody's an island, necessarily nobody will be able to be. It's like you create a world where you say you don't want to be reliant on your government for feeding your kids, for instance, for taking care of your kids at school, for doing this, that, or the other thing. But then you necessarily, by impoverishing these people with these policies, you necessarily create the environment where they have to rely on government assistance because the opportunity to not do that has been taken away.
Well, that's a whole nother thing to include as well. So basically, I've had discussions with friends of mine that voted Conservative, basically. And I kind of asked, why did you vote Conservative and not Labour and stuff like that? And a common thing I hear is that basically Labour wanted to make the minimum wage go up a little higher and such, and they wanted to make more of a base living wage so that people could afford to live basically when they get jobs. And now he said, if they do that, that's going to piss off the corporations. They're going to find ways to recoup those losses. Basically, the whole thing is the corporations will start employing less people. It will be harder for people to get a foot on the ladder in terms of careers.
But at that point, shouldn't you be introducing legislation to pigeonhole what the corporations can do in retaliation instead of just going, we accept the fact that there are overlords?
Well, basically, the mindset right now is that the UK is a slave to the corporation, but it goes further. I'm going somewhere quite interesting with this, which relates to the feeding the kids thing. Basically, another thing they said was that the cost of living will go up if you raise the minimum wage as well. So it basically means that there'll be more homeless people, but those who are lucky enough to have jobs will be able to live a bit more comfortably.
But that situation doesn't change regardless of minimum wage.
Well, another interesting thing is that on Labour's manifesto was to fix the universal credit scheme, which allows people that can't get jobs or any other thing to get financial support that they need. The current state of it right now is you don't get enough and you don't get it when you need it. There's a big waiting period and stuff like that. And the amount of suicides there have been because this damn universal credit thing just isn't paying out on time for people that are at a make or break point with their finances. It's that's the situation. Now, Labour had it on their manifesto to fix that. So I said that's where that comes in. Because basically if they can't afford to live because their job isn't paying them enough or because they're not getting the job that they need, they can turn to the government for effective assistance. That makes it better, surely. And then I kind of just get vagueness in response to that, and it's just strange. Or it all boils back to, I don't like Jeremy Corbyn. It's
like the people who go, well, I don't like Bernie Sanders, so I'm going to vote against
exactly.
good things in the United States. Just like, but wait, hold on.
Yeah, you're voting for policy. You're not voting for them to be your fucking next door neighbor. Jesus Christ. But okay, so linking back to the corporations thing, people will vote Conservative because they're afraid of the UK pissing off the corporations and our economy goes to the shitter. The corporations fed the kids. McDonald's started giving out free meals to the kids. A bunch of other companies and corporations in the UK started giving out the free school meals, picking up the weight where the Conservatives left it. So it's like they would have come around anyway.
And then you create... But then you create the environment where people are trusting the corporations more than the politicians that they've elected. They're supposed to be their duly elected representatives. And because you've created this environment where people are trusting corporations more than they're trusting people that they've been able to elect, that they've had a hand in putting in, you create just this situation where you have carte blanche approval. Like, well, no, the corporations are good, so they can get all the money. They can do the good things. They're good, even though, pardon me for speaking with a little bit of bread for a moment here, despite the fact that the reason that they've had the opportunity to engage in that in the first place is from exploiting their labor.
Yeah, it's absurd. It honestly, and they don't have safeguarding legislations for corporations in regards to ethical treatment of workers. Or they don't have enough anyway. And the same goes for renters as well, which is something I've fallen prey to on both ends. I've fallen prey to shitty companies, I've fallen prey to shitty renting and stuff like that. And I've always wondered, why do we not have any legal rights in this situation? Why is it basically that a contract can say, I'm going to kick you in the nuts, and then I can't get them done for assault? It's nuts.
But you said the word there, and this is from having conversations with libertarians here on the platform, and arguments in comment section or verbally. Contract is kind of the main word there. There's this idea in conservative libertarian circles that so long as you agreed to something, so long as there is a contract, then no amount of any abuse that you take as a direct result of that contract is anything but your fault, because you agreed to it, despite the fact that not all contracts are actually choices. Many times they are ultimatums. If you're basically told, hey, you either get to starve to death, or we can give you all the food you need to live, but you have to eat a shard of glass a week. Your choices effectively are survive with the pain of the shard of glass you ate, or die. And since you had to sign that contract to survive, their argument will then be necessarily, well, no. You're not getting abused. You signed a contract. You agreed to that. And I don't want to have to get in to all of the logical consequences of this kind of thinking. Because that kind of thinking is the same thing where you get to say that, oh, no. You married him. You knew what he was like before you guys started. You should not report him for beating you or for doing X amount of things. The mentality, it necessarily ends up cascading into other forms of abuse. It doesn't just stop with how a corporation gets to abuse you or how a government gets to abuse you. It almost always has layers to it.
Well, that's the thing as well, is even everything is a landmine in the UK effectively. If you're trying to get a home, it's potentially a landmine. If you're trying to get a job, it's potentially a landmine. If you're trying to get insurance, it's potentially a landmine. Holy crap, Trustpilot has become my best friend recently. Every time I sign up for anything now, I check the reviews. And you know how I can always tell that a company's a piece of shit? Is if they have an overwhelming number of 5-star ratings and an overwhelming number of 1-star ratings, but almost nothing in between.
That's a sign that many of those have been paid for. That's the thing you get with Amazon reviews all the time. And that's not a conspiracy theory thing. I'm speaking as somebody who has done the job before of freelance writing the 5-star reviews, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't eat. I've done this job. It's not a make-believe thing. There are people who will pay for you to write a vapid review on a product, and I think when I did it, it was like $25 per review. So if you can hammer a bunch of those out, you might be able to actually, make rent on time. And if that's a thing that you have to do, I'm sorry. But the fact that corporations can do that is gross, and that's the same thing that's happening there. Is you've got your multiple 5-star reviews going, this was amazing, this is wonderful, and then you've got the people who actually got burned, who are trying to claw up through those review ranks. No, don't.
I fell prey to that myself. When I got my last apartment and stuff like that, I got rinsed for money. Before I came to YouTube, my bank balance was it had 4 digits. It was in the minus.
I know that. I know that feeling.
Yeah, and it's a horrible feeling. That's like it's total debt and stuff like that. But I went to university. We get pretty good maintenance loans here in the UK, and they're pretty lenient on paying them back. That's one good thing I can say about the UK. Is the student loan system it's pretty cushy.
Yeah, it's better than the system we have here. Our loan system is entirely predatory. Student loans in the United States are one of the only loans that you are not allowed to file bankruptcy on.
Really? Okay, so in the UK, basically you get like a maintenance loan and a student loan, and they both kind of work the same. I mean, students from anywhere outside of the UK don't get a maintenance loan, so it's kind of like you're on your own. You want to pay for your apartment, you're going to have to get a job. But I, being a UK citizen, get a maintenance loan, which I'm very happy about. And basically the way it works is you do not pay a penny back until you're making upwards of £25,000 per year.
Yeah, that's not how ours works here.
And by then, it's so little that you might as well just be in a slightly higher tax bracket. And if it's not paid off within 30 years of you attending university, it gets waived.
Yeah, see, the way ours works here is that you have to start paying them back almost as soon as you're out of college, you start accruing interest on them. The interest is astronomically high, and there are people who've paid their loan off 4 to 5 times over, and they still have the same amount of debt because they've only ever been able to afford the principal payment. The interest alone was so high that it was as big as one of their utility bills. And because you cannot default on it, because you cannot apply for bankruptcy, and from what I can understand, it never gets waived. The only options you end up having, like if you go to school and then you can't get a job, the only option you have is every year you can apply to have them freeze it. They can freeze your student loan. But that's about all you've got. They can freeze, and the freeze is just the interest. That's it. It's just they freeze the interest accruance on it. And you have to apply for that freeze every year, and there's only so many times that it will happen. That's kind of a trap that we have with a lot of stuff in the United States, where you do have to apply for things all the time. So let's say that you're working 2 jobs and you're barely making ends meet, so you don't have enough time to apply for, like, you just miss it. Like, you were working 12 to 16 hours at the end of the deadline, and you just missed it, because between that and kids, you didn't have time. You end up missing that, or you end up missing a renewal on food stamps, or any number of assistance programs that are supposed to be there for you, and then you get fucked for it. You just fall into the tank.
Come study in the UK. Have yourself a good time.
If I had the opportunity to actually okay, look. If I had the money and the opportunity, I would love to go and officially take a course in economics, like a long studied course. Not, I'm going to go take Econ 101, class A and B. No, I want to go and actually sit down and study for years so that I can get all the numbers, all the data, everything for when I make my arguments with my job. I would want to go and take several years studying philosophy and political science, because at the end of the day, well, and I would also want to take a course in world religions, because at the end of the day, those are all the things that apply to my job, and it would be so good for me if I could just sit down and officially study all these things, get the proper education instead of having to piecemeal it on places like Google Scholar. That would be amazing, but I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right now I'm not having a brilliant time because, well, obviously I'm paying for this uni stuff, and it's all equivalent to basically doing a crap Zoom call, really, at this point. I might as well be doing an open university course. But, I mean, it's not the uni's fault, but maybe the government could pay for it, considering they've prolonged this COVID situation as much as they can. But then, yeah, no, there's an entire thing to talk about with the conservative attitude towards COVID-19. But I've noticed some folks speaking in the chat about Winston Churchill. and I've got some stuff to say about that, which links to kind of Boris Johnson as well, and kind of the furthered indoctrination of the British public. In history classes, we are taught that Winston Churchill is a hero, that he's, the man who saved the world and such. And anything about him having his own concentration camps, that's just completely glossed over. That just didn't happen. Now, when Obama first got into the White House, he had a statue of Winston Churchill removed. The reason being his father, and I don't know if I think I'm correct here, but his father was held in one of Winston Churchill's camps, basically, back when Winston Churchill was in power. And so Obama, to honor his father, or maybe it was one of his other ancestors, basically sent the Winston Churchill back to the UK. And Boris Johnson took the opportunity to get on the media and comment on this, saying, well, because Obama has partially Kenyan ancestry, of course he hates British culture. And Joe Biden has not forgotten about that comment. And that's going to create a very interesting dynamic between America and the UK. Because if there's one thing the UK does well, it's sucking America's dick. And having Joe Biden as the leader in America is going to have an incredibly interesting impact on our current government. And I'm looking forward to it. I am really looking forward to it.
It's like the same thing that happened in here when a lot of our statues were getting removed. There was a statue of Abe Lincoln that got vandalized. And a lot of the conversation that happened around that in the media was people basically going, look at these ungrateful African Americans. Don't they know this man freed them from slavery? But what they didn't do, ignoring the context, like actual things Lincoln had said, where he said things like, if I could keep the Union together without freeing the slaves, I would. Or things where he mentioned about the white supremacy over the black races. Like, ignoring all of that, just at a base level, what these news outlets tended to do was they would say, Black Lives Matter has defaced a monument of Abraham Lincoln. But then they wouldn't show the actual picture of the monument. Have you seen the picture of the Abraham Lincoln monument that was vandalized?
No.
Okay, give me a second. I'm going to throw it up on screen real quick so you can see it on the stream.
They did the same over here with the statue of Winston Churchill, saying the Black Lives Matter movement vandalized that. They didn't even get close to it.
So, this one, you'll understand why this one was a problem in 2 seconds. Here, I've posted it on the stream. Everybody can see it. Now, I wonder why a monument like this might get vandalized by a movement that is jaded about white supremacists.
Oh, jeez.
What? Now, why do you think a news organization would willingly not show this picture when trying to argue that they're just so... They are just destroying their own neighborhoods, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and you're like, what? Hold on, wait a minute. What did they actually vandalize? Because if it's this thing, which it was, blow that shit up!
It pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Oh, man.
Like, that's just asking for it. Like, at that point, you just take the statue guillotine and just cut off the statue's head and just go, nope, this is what we do. Like, this is an actual statue in the United States, and of course that got vandalized by a movement of people jaded about fucking white supremacists. What do you expect?
You know what I honestly think, and I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here. I think these statues should be put in a museum to kind of just say the history, say the context, say why it was wrong, like a little plaque at the front.
Yes, as opposed to having them out and celebrating them.
Yeah, like, there was a statue in the UK which got dragged into the ocean by some protesters.
Yes.
And it was a slave one. My favorite part of that, though, was when the EDL came out and they started trying to fish it out of really deep water with some twigs and shit. And it's just funny watching these overweight, bald, gammon-skin-looking motherfuckers crying over this statue of a person they probably never fucking heard of.
The statue has been destroyed.
All based on a principle which they're not even willing to admit to. It is the definition of cowardly, and it is just hilarious.
So we do have a super chat I want to get into, or not a super chat, but a dono that threw in real quick, and I want to get it before I forget. Bragwin donated $10 and said, "For a good laugh, Trump's lawyer Cleta Mitchell resigned. Then there's the coup attempt in Pennsylvania. Good times. Oh yeah, I almost forgot that Trump has been trying to stage a coup in the United States. Isn't that great?
I've been hearing about it all over Twitter.
It's so the definition of a coup, effectively for this conversation, is any attempt to circumvent the democratic process in order to maintain or gain power in government. That is effectively a coup, because you're going against the will of the people. You're doing that. That's what definitionally that's what Trump is doing by sending calls to different state representatives and going, you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you don't find some votes for me. Like, oh my God.
I've seen about this. It's like the thing I find so crazy is like I don't know how effective it is because I know that the Electoral College is a factor and stuff, but America outwardly prides itself on its democracy and stuff. And these MAGA mutants claim to be patriots, but they're happily like, let's let our leader compromise the democracy we pride ourselves on so much, all in the name of, let me just check my notes, democracy. What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on and have a conversation about this, because when it comes to democracies, in an ideal world, the United States and the UK should look fairly similar to one another. It's almost like we broke off from you guys at one point. But I'm seeing so much of just UK politics. And again, this is nowhere near as much as in the United States because I'm not plugged into your guys' political verse. But I'm seeing, whenever I do get news about it, a lot of like people adapting the conservative policies that we have over here that are gutting us. And I'm just sitting here going, wait, why though? What is the actual benefit of harming your citizens?
I have something brilliant to bring up here, and I actually saved it for this stream as a talking point. Shortly after the 2020 US presidential election, the Conservative parties in one of their constituencies sent out a newsletter to their fellow Conservatives, and you're gonna love this, right?
Okay.
So it's got this whole section on US presidential election. Why is Trump so successful? By UK standards, Trump was a very weak candidate. Despite this, with no political experience, he won the US presidency in 2016 and nearly won it again in 2020. So why is Trump so successful? Right, that opening there, I find hilarious, because they say he nearly won it again in 2020. How is he so successful?
So, the first thing I have to say is, technically speaking, he did nearly win it again. Because if you look at the Electoral College map, even though he was down by like 6 million votes compared to Biden, per the Electoral College map, he only needed a few tens of thousands to actually win the election, to swing the Electoral College vote. So like less than 1% of the votes that went in going to him would have effectively flipped things. So yeah, I do have to agree. Yeah, it was very close how he got here. But if you actually look at his presidency and try to go, well, why is he so successful? Why was he successful? Ignoring the fact that he wasn't successful in this election, because he failed. A lot of it just boils down to Southern Strategy 2.0. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what the Southern Strategy was in the United States.
Does it, by chance, have anything to do with the Confederacy?
No, actually, and yes, at the same time. So the Democratic Party, which was the party that Andrew Jackson had early on, was like our conservative party. Our racists, our assholes had this party, and multiple parties came in to try to go against them, like the Whigs and stuff like that. And it didn't end up working. Well, Abraham Lincoln's Republican Party ended up winning out, and they won out on the basis of freeing slaves, like on social progression. And I'm being very vague about a lot of this because it's there's a reason for it. After a while, the Democratic Party, which stood for party of Andrew Jackson, this was a pro-slavery party. This was the party that the KKK was formed under. This party started to change its positions to more of what the Republican Party was when Lincoln was pushing in, or at least insofar as it was in that political landscape. They started becoming the more progressive party, still like violently capitalistic, but at least more socially progressive, more secular, more willing to take in diverse people. The Republican Party then started to shift, because what happened is the Republican Party was losing its votes to the Democrats again because the Democrats had essentially adopted what was a useful strategy for the Republicans. But if both of your parties are progressive-ish parties, and one of them is always winning, you have two options to go. You can either try to form your two parties into one. Not the greatest idea, but you can try to do that. Or you can do what the Republicans did and enact what was called the Southern Strategy, where they said, let's take all the voters who were disenfranchised by the Democrats, all these Southern racist asshole voters who are uneducated, and there's literally a whole document called the Southern Strategy that goes into how they did this, and let's over time change our platform to one that will re-enfranchise these racists by engaging in euphemisms, things like saying, I just want to protect our borders so we have strong borders, which is basically just pillow talk for immigration policies.
Yeah.
The Southern Strategy basically flipped the Republican Party over a few years into what the Democratic Party was when Andrew Jackson was over it. And because they re-enfranchised these racist people, instead of trying to just educate them to not be racist assholes, they just went, no, let's stoke that voter base. Because the Democratic Party was switching to a more progressive platform. So they decided to grab the regressives. But because of the unique history of the Republican Party in the United States, they get to do things like, PragerU's done videos on this, they get to do things like say, well, no, we're not the party of racists. We're the party that first brought in black Americans to serve in our Congress. We're the party that freed the slaves. We're the party that was for social progression. And they're not technically lying, because the Republican Party pre-Southern Strategy did all of that. But the Southern Strategy was effectively a flipping mechanism where the Democrats and Republicans ended up flipping their sides over time. So, like, yeah, you guys were that party, but you're not anymore.
Yeah, they basically sold their souls for success.
Essentially.
Yeah. And what you're basically saying is that Republicans are objectively stupid in the modern day.
It not necessarily, because
not entirely.
You can get a Republican who is very philosophically literate, but their philosophical literation comes from Ayn Rand. And if you want to see a fictional society, built under the principles of Ayn Rand, look at Andrew Ryan's Rapture from BioShock. That is effectively like if we take a society with Ayn Rand's principles and take it to its logical extreme, that's what it is. And even in the lore of the game, that's what happened. He read too much Ayn Rand and fucked up a world.
Wow.
Like, it is nuts, and it hurts me to see this kind of strategy so effective in the United States that you get articles in the UK about why is Trump so successful? How is he successful?
Well, this isn't even an article. This is a part of a conservative newsletter which they sent out to the MPs. So it comes with instructions as well. So it's like the instruction comes to the point of be more like Donald Trump. He speaks to the common man because he doesn't act presidential. He doesn't talk like a politician. He talks like a bully, and people can relate to that a bit easier. His very brash way of speaking resonates with the undecideds, and he can be persuasive because he sounds like your average Joe, a twat, basically. Another thing that's on this little document, which makes me laugh, is it says, many people are sick to death of Wokism. We need to be anti-woke now.
Oh my god, this is the Wokism is a religion thing.
Can I just read through this whole paragraph here for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
It gets increasingly more pathetic as it goes on. The major institutions in many Western countries, UK, USA, etc., have been overrun by left-wing groups, e.g. Common Purpose, Momentum, etc. These groups oppose capitalism and individualism and promote left-wing ideas. It is very noticeable how the BBC, the Supreme Court, etc., have been pushing very left-wing obsessions. For example, the BBC was determined to turn Doctor Who into a woman because, and it wasn't because of the dramatic narrative demanding it, it was because of the wokish producers and directors demanded it. A large part of the electorate are alienated by this cultural war. Fuck me, that's a political newsletter.
Wait.
And it reads like a fucking nerdrotic video.
Hold on. So aside from the fact that this is a Geeks and Gamers post,
Yes.
can I just say that in one breath, they say they're anti-capitalistic. And then they basically give the argument as to why the capitalists wanted to bring in a woman for Doctor Who to increase market share, which is a purely capitalistic move. It's, hey, let's go grab a target audience that we didn't have before. That is a marketing move. That is capitalism. And they're arguing that these people are anti-capitalism when they're literally just doing a capitalism.
They elaborate on this a little further in their fight wokeism part. Like, so they've got many people are sick to death of wokeism as one of the topics on the agenda, and then there's a separate one called fight wokeism, and it says many voters are heartily sick of being lectured to by very left-wing presenters in the media. The process of embedding wokeism into popular dramas, for example, Doctor Who, has alienated many audiences. Positive discrimination and other forms of officially tolerated racism infuriate many voters. An example of the deep state wokeism is the 2010 Equalities Act. It actually legalizes discrimination in politics based on gender. Labour put this into act because they wanted to discriminate and didn't want to break their own law. So they're bringing up the white genocide argument effectively.
This is Lauren Southern.
And acting like a pissed off YouTuber that doesn't like the new Doctor Who. They really have it in for Doctor Who now. But here's the scariest part, is the part on the agenda that says he weaponizes fake news when they're talking about being more like Donald Trump. It says, Trump has learned that a lie can go around the world before the truth can get its boots on. If you make enough dubious claims fast enough, honest speakers are overwhelmed. If someone tweets 10 dubious claims per day and it takes you a week to disprove each one, then you are doomed. Trump uses this tactic to dominate the news and to the crowd out legitimate politicians. In his 4 years as president, he has tweeted over 30,000 times. His opponents were simply driven off the airways, with the exception of Joe Biden, who clearly beat him.
This is... G-Wing is pointing out in the chat that this is basically just a Nazi argument, and yeah, this is so when you go into like the I've mentioned it on a few shows before, when you hear stuff like the deep state is doing this, you necessarily have to ask who the deep state is, and then you get these layers, and it usually goes something like this. Who's the deep state? Oh, well, they're the people that control the government from the shadows. Okay, but who are they? Well, they're the globalists. Okay, but who are the globalists? Well, they're the financial elite. Okay, but who are the financial elite? Well, they're the people like George Soros. Okay, but who are the people like George Soros? Well, they're the Jews. That's who they are. The bankers, the Jews. That's them. And then you end up having that when you have that conversation, you're like, wait, hold on. So let me get this straight. Now that we've effectively defined our vague-ass term, you've now framed this as you're trying to just get rid of the Jews in your country who have any amount of political power.
So they're effectively just being anti-Semitic.
Yes, and that's but usually they usually sometimes they won't even know that that's what they're doing, because Innuendo Studios did a good video on this where he pointed out that it's the like when you start getting into conspiracy theories and you start feeling like you know the truth, like the whole you know the truth behind 9/11, you know the truth behind the Federal Reserve, you know
too much. The government wants to get in your head and put a microchip in.
You start getting down that line. You feel like you've discovered the truth when it's the deep state. And then when you get deeper into conspiracies, you're like, oh, wait, no. They're the elite bankers. They're the global elite. That's what the deep state is. And so they go, no, now I've discovered the truth. And then a few months later, they start going, well, they're the globalists. That's the word we have for them, the globalists. So they go, well, now I've discovered the truth. And then as you get down those layers of, well, now I know the truth. Now I know the truth. At the bottom layer, it's just the fucking Jews at that point. And then they go, well, now I know the truth. It's this. And suddenly you've created a Nazi. Suddenly you've created an anti-Semite.
Well, here's a little bit of an ironic chuckle, is in this same document, it also says how one advantage they have over the Labour Party is that the Labour Party has an anti-Semitism problem. And, like, I don't have the body language in the world to express how ironic this whole thing is in this document. Now, Labour does have a history of having anti-Semitist-related problems, but the Conservative Party has a dump truck of anti-Semitic and racist problems with it. So it's like, if they want to pull that one up, okay, just bring in the cargo ship. Let's unload. You know?
And it's agitating because there's a political strategy. Ironically, it is actually a strategy that Hitler used several times, and it was criticize your opponent for that of which you are guilty. Just blare out that your opponent is responsible for the thing that you are responsible for doing. And I hate seeing that everywhere. But based on what essentially is a handbook that you're reading out, that's exactly what they're doing.
You would think people could just act like,
adults?
Rational, responsible yeah, exactly. Especially when they're getting overpaid to run our countries. But hey. Yeah, it is kind of just like so strange to see this conservative newsletter going around encouraging their MPs to be more like Donald Trump, and it's like, he lost. But, like, the thing is, what they want to achieve with this is a dangerous and relatively scary thing as well. They already ran a massive smear campaign against Jeremy Corbyn during the 2019 election.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to people saying, though, that Boris Johnson is like our Donald Trump, it's a different kettle of fish, I would say. He has a tendency to enable the very backward and very racist people with his remarks, which he refuses to apologize for, such as his comments about comparing black people to, and I quote, pickaninnies with watermelon smiles, or his comments comparing Muslim women to letterboxes and other such things. Like, he does enable that. Also, his constant kissing of the hypothetical ass of the now dead Winston Churchill. He does give a lot of validation to these types of people, but it's not quite his cult in this case. It's more revolving around people like Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, but Tommy Robinson seems to be out of the picture. He's fled. But, like, the EDL are the equivalent to the MAGA mutants over here, but they're a much smaller minority, and they're not as close to the government as what you've got with the MAGA mutants and Donald Trump. Okay, so Boris Johnson, yeah, he's a fat old bastard with bad hair. But he tries to put on a front, where Donald Trump, he comes across as more raw. He's like the least presidential person I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, he's nasty, he's loud, he gives off the impression that he's a bully. Boris Johnson is trying to be the exact opposite. He wants to be Mr. Cuddly, he wants to be Mr. Lovable. His bumbling, oafish sort of facade is all fake. It's completely fake. You know why his hair is like that? You want to know why his hair is always a mess and why he deliberately wears suits that are too big for him? He wants to be relatable for the common man and woman.
Oh, it's literally just a giant facade.
Yeah, and I think we should all be highly insulted that he thinks we don't have access to a comb or measuring tape.
Well, I look. I am not going to speak on that as somebody who probably really desperately needs a comb right now.
Yeah, but you're looking better than Boris Johnson. Come on, man. I mean, that's not saying much.
It's a low bar to clear, but at least I put a toe over it.
I mean, look, we're in
damn.
quarantine. Like, we're in quarantine. You think, like, if you were about to step out on a podium and read everybody their rights, you would probably get yourself suited up, really groom yourself and everything. You wouldn't go out there with scruffy hair and a suit that's too big for you. I mean, I would, because I can't get suits my size because I'm the shortest man on the planet, but, like, I'd at least comb my hair.
How do you get a suit on a pup? Just curious.
Oh, okay, I have a suit.
It's just a Spider-Man suit.
Oh, okay, in that case, I have many suits. It's just they're generally bought from the kids section. Well, no, actually, I'm telling a lie completely. But I am the shortest man alive.
And that one is definitely true, 110%.
That's why I'm so angry all the time.
Napoleon syndrome. Also, there was a mention in the chat of I still think that Suris should adapt a VTuber style, and the answer to that is just wait.
If you would explain it for a little boomer like myself, what's a VTuber?
Well, technically, but in some ways you kind of are, honestly. Just in a different sense. So imagine if you were doing what you normally do on your videos with the animated Channel Pup avatar, but you did that on live streams, where like the Channel Pup character was animated in real time.
What's all this about? What's all this about a character and animated? And
oh, okay. Okay.
I do my videos with a green screen and a webcam. I don't know what you're kind of trying to say here. If you're trying to say that I'm a fraud or something, like.
Okay, so so you're saying
it would be pretty insidious of me to have like a fake,
to not actually be a real anthropomorphic animal on the internet.
Yeah, what? You think
right.
I just hide behind a dog because I'm fuck ugly? No, no.
All right, everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat. So if you're a furry, please give me an H and adopt Channel Pup now. He is admitted that he is the first genetically true furry. He is your king. He is your king.
Can I also just add animated? So that comes with some hopes for those that are into the 2D variety of women. They are real.
I'm suddenly reminded of Yamada from Danganronpa going, unless you are a man who prefers the 2D variety of women, vastly superior.
I mean, he's not wrong. Anyway, aside from that subject, yeah, no, I can't find a very dignified way out of this one. Politics, man, sure is a lot of politics going around these days.
We went from politics into furries, and it's fine.
Hey, for real, if anyone's a furry, whatever floats your boat, man. Like, completely up to you. I don't own a Channel Pup costume. I think if I could, I probably would.
I think you should.
I've got the hoodie. I've got the hoodie he wears. I just don't have like a dog head or so. I feel like it's a bit macabre actually because he's based on my real dog that died. So I feel like if I had like a giant replica of his head in my room, it becomes kind of creepy.
That's right, Fido. I'm going to wear your skin.
I miss my dog so much I became the dog.
Oh my god. So if I were to suggest something for like going to conventions and talking, you should definitely get like a decently well-versed furry artist. Like one of the ones that actually like makes full fursuits to actually make you a Channel Pup fursuit so you can go to conventions as Channel Pup, the real Channel Pup.
We will save that for the opening of Channel Pup World Resort in Florida, I think.
They're not furries, they're mascots, I swear.
You can go on the YouTube video simulator. It's a really thrilling ride where you sit in a car and you watch my content.
Monetized, of course.
monetized, but you still got to pay entry. But it's okay because all that money goes to the patron, so you know.
Fair enough. Well,
Evil capitalist.
I think we've covered a decent bit where UK politics are concerned, a decent bit on the Tories, and done a lot of comparisons between the United States and how its government operates and how our conservatives are operating versus how a lot of the stuff is operating in the UK. Is there anything else you wanted to get into before we try to wrap things up?
The short version is they're shit. But yeah, I've mentioned austerity measures suck. I've mentioned the Brexit thing was built on a bed of lies. I've mentioned that Boris Johnson's a fraud. I've mentioned that Labour had better ideas in regard to the universal credit system, which would allow for there to be less of a homelessness rate than we have now. I've mentioned the austerity deaths. COVID-19. Okay, so the initial plan was Boris Johnson was saying we need to develop herd immunity. So we're not going to do any changes to anything, just develop herd immunity. But then when people said, fuck no, he was like, okay. Wash your hands for 20 seconds, and you'll be fine. Just wash your hands and stuff. And then it kind of got worse, and it was like, all right, a lockdown it is. And we locked down for a really pathetically brief period of time. And then he opened up saying, okay, eat out to help out. Come on, you got to help your businesses. So everybody eat out. Come on, eat out. We're not going to close the schools. It's like, but if we have a second lockdown, it is entirely the fault of young people. And
that's like the same shit that happened here, where they're like, millennials and Gen Z aren't buying Applebee's. Applebee's is falling apart.
Literally, the millennials and Gen Z are the butt of every joke in the UK, and it's completely unfair.
Okay, boomer.
And hey, I am a millennial. Well, actually, I'm the bridge period. I was born in 1996, so I'm not actually defined as either Gen Z.
Yeah, you're I think the word for that is a cusper. You were on the cusp.
I think the word for it is king, frankly. Because I have the self-righteousness of a millennial, but with the great sense of humor of a Gen Z. So it's a win-win.
But I thought the great sense of humor of Gen Z was just constantly mentioning like all the reasons why it's okay to be macabre and joke about suicide.
Oh, my perspective was it's just like a picture of a frog with like a word over it, and that will do. Like, because I can get down with that. Like, or just Simpsons shitposting. Like, anything like that, I'm game.
Simpsons wave. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Just, you know, that unexplainable humor. Anywho, yeah, so we went into a second lockdown. And it was blamed onto the Gen Z and millennial. And then they were like, okay, no more lockdown. We're going to have a tiered system now. So some of you are in little lockdowns, and some of you will not be locked down at all. And it's like, actually, we gotta lock some of this down way harder. And it's like, should we have another lockdown? Yeah, let's have another lockdown. So it's kind of just like in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I just realized what I said there. That's going to be taken out of context and used in YouTube poops, isn't it? Okie doke.
I'm just going to cut that up and just have... Okay, so what is Channel Pup's policy on politics? In, out, in, out, in, out. Oh, okay, he said fuck him.
Welcome to the Channel Pup Sex Tutorial 2021. Jeez. Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. But yeah, no. Before we do wrap this up, is it okay if I plug something?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna put a link in the chat. Basically, my good friend Heath over in the United States, so he's one of your own. That's a good reason why you should care more about this. He's got a very beautiful little pit bull. And they discovered 2 tumors on her, and she's a gorgeous girl. Like, I literally was jealous. I remember the day before he was about to adopt her, I was green with envy. Yeah, I've started a fundraiser so that my good friend Heath can afford her surgery and stuff. And it would mean the world to me, and it would mean the world to Heath and his partner Samantha if you guys could head over there and make a little donation. Or if you can't do that, just share it around. It's a really good cause. Really sweet dog. Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Oh, it's not poor pup Bohemian Lucy. This is for my friend. It's my friend's dog out in Florida. But he's a very good friend of mine, and I figured the least I can do is start a fundraiser.
And for those who would like the link to that, I just linked the fundraiser in the chat itself. For some reason, the link is working better for me than it was for Pup when Pup tried. And also, if you check the description of this video, you'll probably have to refresh to make sure that it's there. But there is a link under the header Support a Puppo in Need, and that is the link to that fundraising campaign specifically. So if you are able to help prevent issues with dogs, because dogs are our man's best friend. Then
Prevent
please.
dog death 2021.
Prevent dog death 2020. Yes.
2021.
And also, if you guys have not already, please go ahead and look in the description. There's also a link to Channel Pup's channel. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel, as well as checking out the GoFundMe in the description. Either way, if you can do one or the other, that's great. But if you can do both, that would be the perfect thing. Would be doing both, if you can.
Very kind of you. Very kind.
All right, and with that, chat, is there anything you guys want to say to Pup before we hop out? And knowing that there's going to be a delay in chat, so I'm going to have to awkwardly fill in this time with random fluff conversation. I can see.
Just go ahead and roast me. Like it's all good.
Roast Pup 2021.
Roast this little British bastard.
Make Pup feel like 2021 is just 2020 again.
Please don't.
Oh, would that destroy your psyche? That'd be a bit much.
I mean, I don't know. It wasn't as bad as me as it was for others.
Fair. You did get somebody saying "nice voice, Pup" when we did our. Hello, Hylia. That was my shoulder. Hylia is our heaviest cat, so whenever he jumps on me, you feel it.
See, I'm seeing this with a slight delay, and okay, now Hylia's jumped on your shoulder. There we go.
Hylia, come here. Chat doesn't get to see you all that often. They always see Yumi. You come here. Come on.
Look at her little white socks. How cute.
Come on. He's also got a milk stain on his lip. Hold on.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
So we thought Hylia was a girl when we got her, and then suddenly that was not the case after several months when a little red rocket popped out. We were like, oh, okay, well, we're keeping the name. You respond to it. Hey, Hylia. Hey, buddy. It's always Yumi up here, never you. So say hello to the chat, Hylia. I'm not even, like, I'm holding just his bottom. What's up?
Do you like beef brisket?
Yes. EDL Chud's crying about statues.
That's the truth. Trying to fish him out of the ocean with sticks and twigs.
I don't know what the options are.
Southern barbecue sides.
Mac and cheese. All right. And with that said, thank you for hopping on Channel Pup. I am sorry that I'm getting distracted trying to help Raz order food.
No worries. Looking forward to dinner. Yeah, no. Just be sure to share it. Did I hear something about Southern barbecue? Sounds good, man.
Yeah. Apparently Raz is ordering some barbecue from.
I do love barbecue.
With that said, I will say it one last time for everybody in the chat. If you have not subbed over to Channel Pup, please do so. If you have not checked out the fundraiser that is linked in the description, please do so. And I want to go ahead and thank Channel Pup one more time for hopping out. I know that politics isn't necessarily your realm of expertise, but I do appreciate coming in and giving a little bit of perspective on things nonetheless.
Oh, no trouble at all. I'm always game for a little bitch about our stupid government.
Fair enough. Well, do you have any more closing statements before we go ahead and hop out? I'll let you have the last words.
Yeah, if you don't subscribe, I will shit in your front garden. That's all I got. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on here, though. As always, Suris, I've had a blast, man.
Awesome. I have as well. And with that, we move right into the ending screen.